Okay, let's look at if there's. Oh, here we go. We have audio. Look at that. Finally, we got audio. That took a long time. That took way too long.
Finally got it.
Yep, we did. No, now we have to make sure. Video. Oh my gosh. Oh wow, that's great. Okay. That's good audio. And then
Mic check 1 2.
Okay. Ooh, what happened to the phone? I don't know what happened to the phone.
Don't tell me the phone died.
No, it didn't die. Okay. So, hello everybody.
Welcome back.
The two people who are watching right now, God bless your patience. We really apologize because this was not meant to happen. And one more thing. Sorry, guys. Okay. God bless. So what happened was we were having audio issues, and a bunch of things came up tonight. I really prepared. Ilya already has lost his patience.
We're live?
Yeah, we're live.
Oh.
So
welcome back, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I really want to apologize to everybody about the audio issues. For some reason, there was issues that I could not have foreseen. I think it really has to do with supported browser. I always used Safari, but lately Safari has been giving me issues, not just on this website. So I want to apologize to everybody. Oh, wow. That was very frustrating. I almost don't have any energy left, but let's do this.
You almost gave up.
Yeah, it's true. Okay. Ilya, what do you got for us? What's the name of this week's Parshah?
Mishpatim.
Yep, Mishpatim.
So this is when we are given 53 commandments. I believe 23 were positive and 30 were negative commandments. And I believe this is the 18th week of the year. So this is the 18th Parshah. Yeah. So as we all know, the first two that were given, how they were given by Hashem himself. So everybody died. And of course, everybody said, hey, we will do, and then we will understand.
Right. Exactly. Well, 1 second. Last week was the giving of the Torah.
Right.
And now it's all the laws.
Right.
Tons of laws. Yeah, exactly. So let's just go through the Parsha in a nutshell. Let's do a proper intro first. Welcome to the Prayer Player YouTube channel and podcast. Guys, I'm thinking about new name, but anyways, that's
what name?
Like instead of Play Hard, maybe a different name, but I'm racking my brains for
throw it out there, and we'll see how many likes we'll get, and we'll put it up for a vote.
I don't want anyone to take the name. I don't know.
Who's going to take your name?
What do you think about Always a Jew? Always? No, not so much. No. I don't know. Okay, I have to think more about what I want to call it. But anyway, or if you like Play Hard, I'd say you want it to stay that way. But welcome to Parshas theBarber. And
why not call it a Jew Talk or
Jew Talk?
Yeah. Like one of those. Has to have a punchline,
Yeah. Exactly. So what do you have for us? Anything specific from the Parsha?
I mean, nothing specific, but a lot of general stuff. I mean, not much.
Okay, so let's go into Let's go into the Parsha a little bit, Mishpatim in a nutshell. The name of the Parsha is Mishpatim, which means ordinances, and it is found in Shmos. Following the revelation of Har Sinai, Hashem gives a bunch of halachas, so a bunch of laws for the Jewish people. Right? It's about servant. Right? If you knock out his tooth, what happens?
You have to pay
Penalties
him.
for murder, kidnapping, assault, and theft. Civil laws for damages. Right? Who owes what? Who owes what person what
Interest.
and when? Loans and the responsibilities of the four different types of people who have someone else's objects, right? There's someone who's renting, there's someone who's borrowing, someone who's watching it for free, someone who's watching it and being paid for watching it. And the idea of justice by courts of law also talks about, a ger, you have to treat a convert properly, observing the Yom Tovim and the gifts that are meant to be brought to the Beis HaMikdash in Yerushalayim, not eating meat and milk, the mitzvah of prayer, and altogether there are 53 mitzvahs and 23 positive ones and 30 negative ones. Hashem promises the Jewish people that we're going to go to Eretz Yisrael and tells us not to act like the nations, not to be pagan like them. And the people of, like you said, of Israel proclaim, we will do and we will hear what Hashem commands us. Aaron and Hur are left in charge of the Israelite camp. Moshe goes to Har Sinai, stays there for 40 days and 40 nights to receive the Torah from Hashem. So
That's
yes,
it. You gave the whole Parsha in a nutshell.
Yeah, the whole Parsha in a nutshell. Now
details, baby.
Now some details. Yes. Hold this for a second.
That'll cost you extra.
Yeah. How much extra? Oh, God help me.
What happened?
No, another hindrance. Like Ilya says, the Yetzer Hara is trying to stop us from spreading out.
That's right.
Goodness.
And there was an old song that said, "Nothing could stop us. We all the way up."
Oh yeah. That's all positive. It's very popular on social media now, no?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Very ghetto style today. A lot of things that on the outside look like they didn't go well, but we're gonna roll with the punches, guys. And this week I was like pushing the show. I was like, this is gonna be a great show. As they say, a mensch tracht and Eibishter lacht. A person thinks and Hashem laughs. But we can still have a great show happening. Okay, so let's go into it. And here's where we're going to talk about some pretty amazing stuff. The Chida writes about who wrote the Shulchan Aruch, right? We know that Rabbi Yosef Karo, the Bet Yosef, he wrote the Shulchan Aruch. Now, why are we mentioning the Shulchan Aruch? In the beginning of the Parsha, the first thing that it says is, Eila HaMishpatim Asher Tas Lifneim. These are the laws that you should put in front of them. And Rashi says, what do you mean put it in front of them? Like a table that's set, like a Shulchan Aruch, right? You don't have to, right? When someone sits down to eat, you can either, or someone wants to eat, you can either have to go and, how far back do you want to go? Do you want to go into the fields? You have to plant, you have to cut the stalks, you have to go prepare. Here it's a table that's set up. I don't have to go looking anywhere. All the halachot are in one place. That's what Shulchan Aruch is. So the Chida writes that there were actually 3 people who were candidates to write the Shulchan Aruch. Why? Every generation had what it needed, was given what it was needed. Before a certain time, only the written Torah was allowed to be written. Everything else was oral.
Right.
Time of the Mishnah, things changed. People were forgetting things and had to be written down, so on and so forth. The generation of the Bet Yosef, it was time to write down Shulchan Aruch where it was laid out very simply so that people would be able to keep the Torah properly. And there are 3 people who were candidates.
Right. I heard about that. There was one in Baghdad or somewhere
Okay.
around there.
So there was.
There was one in Europe.
Okay, so that's the Ramah, right? That's
Ramah, right, and there was one more. I don't recall. I think in Jerusalem itself.
so here it actually says, and I'm not sure exactly where these people were the entire time. The Bet Yosef was in Tzfas, I believe.
Okay.
But there were three people. Taitazak, I think that was the name. Yeah, the Harav Yosef Taitazak, who actually he had to leave Spain because of the Inquisition. Went to Portugal, from there to Italy, and from there to Saloniki or Salonika,
Okay.
which is was under the Ottoman Empire. It was, I believe, today it would be, is it in Greece? Yeah, I believe it's in Greece. And actually, if you look, you could see that at some point between 15 and 1600, more than half the population was Jews over there.
Really?
Yes, so many people came there. It had people actually call it the mother of Israel. People would call it then the mother of Israel because that's how many Jews were there, and it was a very prominent place where a lot of Jews came after the Inquisition, if I'm not mistaken. I want to just share the screen for a second.
Well, before the Ukrainian war, you'd think that Uman during Rosh Hashanah is probably would be a place that would resemble something like that.
Yeah.
Now there's nobody going there. Before the war, I think they had over 1 million people that came for Rosh Hashanah.
Say again?
Before the Ukrainian war, I think they said there was over 1 million people that visited Uman during Rosh Hashanah.
Really? I didn't know that. No, I didn't know that. Okay, I guess
when the war started, there was like barely 30,000 people that went to visit.
That could be, yeah, it's possible. That's crazy. Now, anyway, so he was in and he was part of a very big family of rabbis. A big Kabbalist, also one of the greatest Talmudic authorities. Rabbi Yosef Karo, who's the one who ended up writing the Shulchan Aruch, actually refers to him sometimes. I'm really upset that I can't share the screen right now because I actually wanted permissions, whatever. I can't share it right now, but I wanted to show, like, you could see from different eras. They showed different empires, what was there. Until today, I think you could see, it's called Yehudi Hammam, like the Jewish bathhouse, because it was in the Jewish quarter. And it's still there. You see like a bunch of modern buildings, and there's like an old thing over there where it used to be the Jewish bathhouse. And then there was the Bet Yosef himself, who ended up writing it. And then there was the Maharival, Rab Yosef ben David ibn Lev. That was his name. And now he actually ended up going from Turkey. He was born, they say it was Turkey, but I think it was just the modern Ottoman Empire. He was born in a place called Monastir, which today would be in like Macedonia area. He went to Salonika also. And then in the end of his days, he ended up in Kushta, which is Constantinople. And he was a Rosh Yeshiva in a yeshiva of a woman, which is very interesting. She founded this yeshiva, and we're going to talk about her later on.
Okay.
And we're going to focus a lot on her in this incredible woman, incredible woman. And her name was Donna Gracia Mendes. She went under the name Beatrice when she was supposed to be pretending to be a non-Jew. Mm-hmm. She went under Gracia, which was for Chana, and eventually her name she adopted when she finally was able to act as a Jew freely, as we'll see. She took the name Nasi, which was the name of her nephew. which of her niece's husband. She's named Nasi, and she was Chana Nasi. Now, anyways, he was a Rosh Yeshiva there, and there's a whole story with him himself, how one of his sons was killed and another one of his sons drowned, and that's why he ended up going eventually to Constantinople. Anyway, these were three people who were giants in Torah. And the Chida writes that the reason why the Bet Yosef was picked to be the one to end up being able to write it was because he was extremely humble.
Okay.
He had extreme humility. And there's actually a very interesting story with the Maharival, with the last rabbi we mentioned, that he was one of the candidates, that he was also working on something. And when he found out that the Bet Yosef put out a Shulchan Aruch, he told his students that they're not allowed to learn from it. Why? Because it takes away from the bikius, from the knowledge that a person's supposed to have in Gemara. If you put all the halachot there, that's it. You're not going to know all the background. And so he didn't let them do it. And the way they would learn is his Talmudim would have all the authorities before the halacha was written, all the Turim open, and they would learn the halachot, and he would say, and I just want to say the Turim is like the text of Jewish law after the Gemara, but it was still, not formatted as simply as the Shulchan Aruch. And he would, whenever they would mention it, he would mention exactly where it is in the Gemara. That's how sharp and how massive his knowledge was. And then when the day that Min HaShamayim, they made a decree that now the generation needs a Shulchan Aruch, and Rabbi Yosef Kar was the one who was elected, who was chosen, that day he didn't remember a thing. He couldn't remember anything.
Why?
Because that was like a sign from heaven.
I'm not sure I understand.
That he shouldn't oppose it.
Wow.
And he realized that moment that's what it is. That
was his mission.
That's what you're supposed. They should learn. They should learn from this sefer. And when they opened it, they saw that he actually mentions the place in the Gemara where it's from. And then they saw that all of his knowledge came back to him. So they realized that.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty crazy, huh? But now, before we get back to this lady, her name was Donna Gracia. Let's go to the next part. So it says "V'rapo yirape," right? It says that he has to pay. I think you have to pay for a person if you injure them. You have to pay for a bunch of things, for the pain, for the embarrassment, for the work that they write, and for the work that they weren't able to work during that time. And one of the things he says, it says "V'rape yirape." So in Meseches Brachos it says, from here you know, because of the double lashon, that a doctor was given permission to heal, because it's right. If you think about it, God sent the sickness. Why should a doctor be allowed to heal? So here we see that a doctor is allowed to heal.
Right. Doctors have a special prayer.
Yes.
Before they start working.
Oh, really?
They have a special prayer.
What's that?
I don't know what it is, but I know that they have a special prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently we're supposed to say a prayer when we see these three things. One of them was an owl. One of them was a monkey. What was the third one? I forget.
Oh, Mishana Habriyas, no?
That's what it's called?
It's the same bracha for all three?
Right.
I think the bracha is Mishana Habriyas. That Hashem says, like, Hashem makes like strange creatures.
Right. We acknowledge the fact that he creates everything, especially these three creatures. Monkey, owl, and something else it was.
Really? An owl?
Why owl? Because it's the only animal in the world that could twist his head 160 degrees.
All right, yeah, it does do that.
Why a monkey? At a time of when they created what's his name? They wanted to fight Hashem.
By Migdal Bavel, so people turned into.
So he turned them back into monkeys. So evolution, whoever believes in evolution, you guys got it twisted. People, monkeys didn't become people. People were turned into monkeys.
Yeah, exactly.
And I forget what the third one was.
I don't know. Who knows? Not elephants, right? Not elephants.
Elephant.
Was
You're
it
right. Elephant.
Oh, okay.
You're right. Elephant, monkey, and an owl.
Really? Okay, that's very interesting. Thank you for that. Now there are some exceptions about, there's discussion about when a doctor doesn't have permission to, but in general, we're supposed to seek out being healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're just going to mention a few of the doctors we know, like who in history, some of the tzaddikim,
Mm-hmm.
great men, so our greatest giants in Torah who were also doctors. It says that there was a person in the Beis HaMikdash who his name was Ben Achia al Choylei Me'ayim. He was like in charge over there to make sure people were, when people had sicknesses in the stomach, what was going on? They
were eating too much.
The Kohanim were eating meat,
roasted meat.
They were eating meat, and they were drinking water.
Water? Why not wine?
Because they couldn't have wine in the Beis HaMikdash.
Oh yeah,
you're not allowed to drink. So and they were also walking barefoot on the floor. So the conditions, and I think at some certain point they made a system where there were torches in the basement so that it would kind of warm the tiles. But I don't know when that was incorporated. And but until then, so they were unhealthy. And a lot of times what happened was either they were constipated or they would have loose stool. And so this person knew exactly what, and this is very interesting, there were wines, specific wines that were good for
different things.
They were good for what would help either help them, with their problem of loose stool, or it would, relax the constipation. So he was, he knew, he was an expert in wines, and it's very interesting that wines would be able to heal people. Very, very interesting.
Very interesting is the fact that if you have an all meat diet, you have a problem as well.
Oh yeah,
all meat diet. Who do we learn this from? Kohanim. All day long, what do they eat? There wasn't much bread eaten. There was a lot of meat eaten.
Yeah, but I think it's also the quantity. The quantity of meat that they had. Yeah, it was so much meat. Yeah, maybe the keto people are wrong. I'm just kidding. Listen, some people. There's this famous psychologist and his daughter who they got healed by just eating meat.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah. So anyway, there's that. Now in the Gemara, we see that Shmuel knew a lot about refuah. He knew how to heal all illnesses except for 3 that were known in those times, which is insane. How that's a lot of knowledge. And he acted as a doctor for Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, and for Rav. Chanina and Abba Umar are other Amirim who are mentioned who were doctors. And in general, in the Gemara, you see that there are many recommendations for different types of healing, remedies for a lot of different things. So we see that our Chachamim had a lot of knowledge. Later times, you had the Rambam. It said that the Rambam wrote 17 books on healing, on medicine, but we only have one of them. Imagine 17 books, but we only have one.
Wow! So the rest were lost to us.
The rest are gone. Yeah.
I think we were talking on the podcast 2 or 3 weeks ago about how this great rabbi, he himself was a doctor, he went to visit Rambam, and as soon as Rambam saw him, he told him, "Okay, he told his students, take him to his quarters and keep him there and give him nothing but onions to peel all day long." And
Ibn Ezra. There's different.
That's who it was, right?
It was the Ibn Ezra, but there are different versions of the story. But what did you hear?
So he tells him. He tells his students, take him to his room, keep him there for 3 days straight, and give him a whole pile of onions to peel. And if the pile gets smaller, give him more onions. And for 3 days straight, so he's peeling onions and he's crying his eyes out. And while this is going on, 5 minutes later, one of his students came by, gave him a bucket, and said, "Oh, by the way, collect all your tears in this bucket." So he's peeling and he's thinking to himself, "What did I do to deserve this? Why is he punishing me like this? I'm his guest. How could he do this?" So the whole time he did it, and he's like, "You know what? He's a great tzaddik. I gotta have faith. There gotta be a reason on why he'll tell me." For 3 days straight, he does this. And then he comes to see him and he says, "What have I done to offend you? Why did you do this to me for 3 days straight?" He says, "Look, man, what you had was this eye condition. You were gonna go blind if you weren't gonna do this for 3 straight days.
Right.
If you stopped for 5 or 10 minutes, then you have to start the whole cycle all over again. So I couldn't explain to you. I couldn't tell you what's going on, and that's why I needed you to do what you're doing. And now, if you don't believe me, look in the bucket. What do you see?" He sees his tears, and he sees little black dots floating around. He's like, "That came out of your eyes. If you wouldn't have done it, then you wouldn't have healed your eyes." And the cure was to cry for 3 days nonstop. And that's exactly what he did.
Just by looking at it, eh?
It goes to show you how good he was.
Yeah, so it's funny. I heard that story. Oh, you guys, I'm sorry, the camera on me went out. We're all out of sorts today, but it's okay. There's still this camera, so as you can see me. But okay, so what I heard was that that his eyes were hurting, and because his eyes were hurting, he went to the Rambam, and the Rambam put him in a stable, and
I think that's what it was. Probably that's what it was.
he put it whatever.
I don't recall the reason why he came to him in the first place, but he was a doctor himself.
So I didn't know he was. He might have known something about healing. I didn't know Evan Ezra was actually a doctor. But anyway, so he went to him, and when he put him in the stable, he said, like, "Why is he treated?" He was so broken and he was so in pain and everything. He started to cry and cry and cry. And the next morning, his pain was gone. And I explained to him that what you had, you needed to cry. But yeah, it's such an incredible story. The Rambam sees him and says, knows what he needs.
Well, related to this, something I learned this week in the Midrash.
Yeah.
It was saying that if somebody, God forbid, fell from a roof, first thing they do is they take him to the hospital. A specialist comes and checks his vital signs. Checks his, make sure he's breathing normally, checks his heart, checks this, checks that, gives him something for inflammation, and says, "You got to take this for this long." Next comes the guy with X-rays to check his bones, to make sure his bones are okay. He has a fracture or whatever, he puts a cast on him. Next comes somebody who's a dermatologist. They see, because he's all scratched up, beat up, make sure that he doesn't have any infections. They give him antibiotics. Next specialist comes and makes sure that he doesn't have a concussion. So they do a CAT scan or MRI or whatever it may be. In other words, there's a specialist for every single ailment.
Yeah.
Specialist. So the reality is, what did we accomplish by talking about all this? We know that there is no one cure or no one medicine that could cure all the symptoms, correct?
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to spirituality and when it comes to Torah, by learning Torah, doesn't matter what subject it is, irrelevant, it will heal you from within. It will heal you in a way where it will open up what needs to be answered for you. It will be there. You just have to concentrate. You just have to learn and have faith. Learning Torah heals you from within, in and out. So that was the message from the Midrash.
Wow. How do we get here?
We were talking about ailments. And
doctors,
right?
Yeah, and the Rambam, right? And okay, so the next one was the Ramban. He was also very well versed in medicine and was known to be a doctor. The Sforno was very well known in medicine, very well versed in medicine. He was also knew a lot in philosophy, to the point where non-Jewish scholars would come to hear what he had to say. That's how renowned he was.
Did any of them give him any credit?
It's a good question. I don't know.
Chances are no.
And then Rabbeinu Avram Arofei. Now this is very interesting. he, I think he wrote a sefer called Shilte HaGiborim. But he was in a long line of doctors. He was a doctor. His father, his grandfather, and his great grandfather was actually a doctor to Ferdinand the First of Naples,
Okay.
the king, the first of Naples. So he was actually from a long line of doctors who were also great rabbis.
Okay.
Now, another thing it says here that we want to talk about is Toiv Shebaroifim the Gehenna. This is from the Gemara. It says that the best of the doctors go to Gehenna, go to hell. What does that mean? Right, meaning the doctors
That's
are
not
doing
very inspiring to become a doctor.
exactly, and it's like they're doing life-saving work. And the Torah, we just learned another place in the Gemara. It says that doctors have permission.
Right.
So there are two types of doctors. There's the doctors that hold all the credit for themselves. And the doctors, like you said, there's a special prayer they say before, and they know that it's all in Hashem's hand. And our doctor has to know it's all in God's hand. And him, of course, he's going to, not only will he not go to Gehenna, but he's actually going to be given credit, and there's going to be great reward for someone who saves lives and who makes people feel better. But the one who holds credit for himself, he's the one who they're talking about. And actually, I know somebody, I don't want to go into the details, but he needed to have a surgery for something. And the doctor said, oh, no problem, I can do it with my hands behind my back. And he caused permanent damage in this person. Because he was, and you see this person, he was so arrogant, and yeah, no problem, I can do it with my hands tied behind my back. So, and another explanation for this, Toiv, it says Toiv Shebaroifim. Toiv, if you look at the letters, Tes is 9, Vav is 6, and Vez is 2. Together that makes 17. How many blessings are there in Shemona Esrei? 18. So when you have a doctor who only prays 17 blessings, what does that mean? That he prays like he's supposed to. But because he's a doctor, when it says, and when he comes to the bracha, Rifa'enu, of Hashem Hilas, he's not as fervent.
Like he's missing. Like he's not there yet.
He's like, okay, listen, I'm a doctor. I know what I'm doing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, God gives, God heals. I also heal. A person like that who doesn't give credit to God, that's what it says, Toiv Shebaroifim from the Gehenna. So Toiv Shebaroifim, if you have a doctor who's only praying 17 blessings because the 18th, which is Rifa'enu, he doesn't give the credit to Hashem as much as he should, he is deserving of punishment.
Wow. Well, to add to that, I know it's a little bit of an inconvenient truth, but the reality is most people who are in a healthcare field, in that industry, a lot of these people deal with life and death situations many, many times a day. And unfortunately, each and every one of them have their own cemetery. What do I mean by that? Especially when they're rookies, especially when they're young and they don't have that much experience. A lot of times their experience is gained on the fact that they make mistakes.
Right.
And unfortunately, people die.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. So the question is, are they held responsible for their own inexperience? You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So becoming a doctor is a huge, huge undertaking. And unfortunately, a lot of young people don't understand what they go into when they go into healthcare. It's a huge responsibility.
That's true.
Spiritually, physically. In today's world, a lot of people look at the prestige of it. Oh, I'm a doctor. There's a lot of money, and it's a prestigious looking job. But the reality is there's a lot of negative things that come with it. It's a lot to bear.
Wow.
And you have to be a mentally strong person.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And if you don't have religion in your life, chances are depression is something that a lot of them go through. A lot of these healthcare professionals, they have to deal with a lot of these downsides of healthcare. So you have to be a really, really, really strong emotionally and mentally person
You gotta have
to do these things.
nerves of steel.
Yeah.
100%. Now, here I want to mention something about. It talks about borrowing, right? If you borrow something and then it,
Before we go on, I got one question that's been bothering me for a while.
for sure,
When the darkness came, one of the plagues, when darkness came and we were supposed to go and see what the Egyptians have and this and that, why did we have to say, let me borrow? It specifically says, go and borrow from your Egyptian neighbors.
Yeah, I have the same question.
Why borrow? I don't understand. Why didn't we just straight up told them, hey guys, all this time you've been abusing us, you've been doing this, and that, you owe me this.
We out of here.
Yeah. Why borrow?
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But also, we know in many generations later, when Alexander the Great conquered Jerusalem and this and that, and well, not really conquered, but conquered,
Yeah.
I believe that's what the Egyptians came and demanded.
Right.
They said, hey, you're a fair king, so be fair. Judge us.
Yeah.
What do you want us to judge? Well, the Jews said they would borrow. Why didn't they pay back?
Right.
That was a clever answer. I think something like bring back the people that they borrowed from, or something like that.
No, the answer was let's sum up the wages of the slaves and how much.
Right, something like that. But
and actually, it was a lot more than they gave them.
Right, but the point I'm trying to make is, with this whole situation was created, it seems unfair. It seems wrong. It's as if we did it with a clever, conniving way that we knew we weren't paying back.
Yeah. So it's
but why say borrow?
I think there's an answer to it, but I don't remember if I learned it fully or not, because it is strange. It was very tricky. Now, I mean, the answer off the top of my head is that we had to trick them because they would have never let us actually go. But I'm sure there are better answers and more, for sure, much more detailed answers, but I don't have them.
Because one of the reasons why last week's Parshah with Yitro, you remember he comes and he tells Moshe Rabbeinu about creating judges and creating judgment systems, because he says, oh, you're weathering yourself out. How could you do this from day in and day out? How could you be the only judge? Apparently, he wasn't the only judge. It was all of Leviim and him.
Oh, you said this last
right,
year.
because they were all the only ones that didn't go borrow. They were the only ones that didn't go take from anybody else. That didn't get filthy rich before leaving Egypt. So they were the only ones that were able to judge the people.
Erev Rav,
right.
Yeah.
So that's why when Yitro came, that's the judgment that was going on. Think about it. We just left Egypt. What kind of court cases can you possibly have?
Right.
So this was apparently what they were judging against, between people. And of course, everybody else was involved in doing it, so they couldn't be the judges.
They were, what's the word?
Accomplices.
No Gerabadover. They were involved.
Right.
So it'd be a conflict of interest. Yeah.
So that whole machloket was created because of that, just because we said we will borrow. We all know that
there's a good answer, but I don't have it.
We all know the Egyptians gladly gave us everything and said, just go already. After all the plagues we've witnessed, everything that has happened, please just leave. So they wanted us to leave.
Okay, here's another possible answer. It's possible that in order for them to chase the Jewish people, they had to be like, what? They're not coming back?
They have to they lied to us. Like, they deceived us.
Right.
But the reality is, it was all going towards that. It was all going towards that.
What do you mean?
After every plague, and every time after every plague, Moshe Rabbeinu would come and say, "Hey, we have to go and pray to our God. We have to make sacrifices."
Right.
What did the Pharaoh say? Okay, just take the old men. He said, "We can't take only just old men. Leave the children. We can't leave."
But he wanted them to leave something
Right.
behind. Yeah.
So at the end of it all, he said, "Take everything. Take your what's his name? Cattle. take your everything you could carry, your old, your kids, your women, your children, anything. Just take it.
Right.
Just go do your thing. After 10 plagues, he says that. And it says that most of
scared for his life.
maybe Pharaoh or maybe his minions, but most of Mitzrayim was gladly gave them things and said, "Go, go, go." Get out of
No, they wanted him out of it. Listen, it's I'm sure there's a lot to be discussed about why it had to happen that way.
Right.
Something interesting here about a story about borrowing, because we know that borrowing is because you're not paying anything for it and you have someone else's item, you're liable even if it gets stolen, right? Even if, let's say, somebody holds you up and they steal it, you're still liable because, right? So, but the only time that there's an exception is if you were using it as it's supposed to be used.
Okay.
There's a story about in Sefer Toldos Adam. There's a story about Reb Shlomo Zalman of Vilna. His nickname was Reb Zalmala of Vilna.
Can we repeat that again?
Reb Zalmala, like Mendes, Zalmala, Vilna.
Moishala.
Yeah, and it says he was the younger brother of Reb Chaim of Volozhin.
Okay.
It was
I can't even pronounce that. Okay.
He was a Talmud of the Vilna Goyim, so they were both. It looks like they both learned from the Vilna Goyim.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a story about him that he once asked someone for the Sefer of Tana Dvei Eliyahu, and the person who owned it in the beginning didn't want to lend it to him because it was very precious to him, and he didn't want it to get ruined. But because of how great Reb Shlomo Zalman was, he didn't say anything, and he gave it to him. Now, when Reb Shlomo started to learn, he learned with it so much that in only a few days, it became so worn and torn because of how much he used it.
Oh wow!
So when he was done with it and he gives it back to him, the guy sees that his sefer is ruined. He gets angry and he says, "How could you do this?" And Reb Shlomo says, I don't know why you're upset. The Gemara says in Baba Metzia that if the behemoth dies because it was used properly, the person's patur. Because I borrowed it from you in order to use it.
Okay.
And I didn't take the sefer to put it on the wall. I used it to use it properly. And which means to use it properly to read out of it.
Okay.
And if it got ruined because of its appropriate use, so then I'm sorry, but this is how the use is. It's an interesting story, and it discusses in the sefer over here if it's really correct, because if you overuse something right to the extreme, then it's overwork. Like if you just work an ox day and night, right, for 3 days and it dies, that's abuse.
Okay.
So it discusses if he was halachically, if this is correct, and there's different proofs. One second, there's different proofs whether it's correct or not, but it's just an interesting story, And I want to say I'm saying go ahead and say first, but I want to talk in general about this. Is the title of the video, which is that books are not for decoration; they're meant to read. But
yeah, but at that time, books were very, very, very expensive because there were no reprints. Or to reprint them was almost impossible. So you can't put years of use in a month. Then you're abusing it. So understand what I mean?
Yeah. So that was an argument that's being brought. Was it overused? But what were you going to say?
But there was a similar case. There was a woman in Israel. She goes to a hospital, and in hospitals, every hospital has Psalms of David, Tehillim.
Right.
So she takes the Tehillim, and all night long she's reading it, and she's crying, and she's reading it, and she's crying, and she was crying so badly that the whole book got so wet. And because the book got so wet, it fell apart. It was damaged to a point of where you have to just already get rid of it. You can't.
Saltwater damage.
Right. Now the question was, is she liable to pay for the book since she's the one who destroyed it?
Right.
Now the hospital has a budget. There's how much they spend for books, how much they spend for this. Now the person came, a security guard came and said, "I'm sorry, ma'am. I understand you're crying. I understand, you have somebody in the hospital, but the reality is you damaged the hospital's property. You have to reinstate it. So the question is, does she have to pay for it?
Mm-hmm.
What would be the answer?"
That's a good question.
So the answer is, when it comes to any other sefer, any other books, if you damage them because of water damage or crying, you have to pay for it.
But a Tehillim, I love that. I
Tehillim
love that.
was made to make you cry. If you don't cry, you're not doing it right. You're doing something wrong. So the reality is, you're not responsible because you were crying.
That's
because
its use. That's
right.
appropriate use.
That's its purpose.
Oh, that's so
Any
great.
other sefer, you can't say that.
Okay, here we go. Now. Okay. You should be able to hear now. I don't know where you lost us. Shucks, I don't even know where we were lost. Oh well. I don't, because if this came in just now. Oh, okay. So it just happened like 3 minutes ago.
Yeah, so we missed out on the whole time.
That's good. We were saying there's stuff we shouldn't have been. No, well, the part that we were talking about, we shouldn't have been talking about. Right, just in case we missed that part, which would be very tragic if we did. About
the use of Tehillim.
The Tehillim, right? Yeah. So Ilya was just saying, and you guys probably already heard that there was a woman who ruined the Tehillim with her tears, and the halacha was that she doesn't have to pay for it because that is the proper use of a Tehillim. Any other book would be different, but
because you're responsible to keep it, to return it to the rightful owner the way you got it in the first place.
Yeah, we're gonna turn around to over here just because both cameras went out. So now we're gonna face the people over here. Guys, it's.
What about the other one? Is also
Yep, they're all out. It's incredible. We have to move. We have to move forward. That's all I could say. Now,
hey, if the batteries are dying in us, that's a good thing. It means we got enough information to go around.
It means that I didn't charge the batteries when I should have.
Okay, we don't point fingers here.
Yeah.
It's not a blame game.
There's something really beautiful from the Rebbe. I'm just going to say it very, very short. In this week's Parsha, it talks about the ox that gores.
Right.
If it gores 3 times, then it becomes a sharmua. That means it's a deviant. It's deviant, right? It means that it's we know that it's going to do it again, and there are certain halachas,
It's a menace to society.
Yeah, exactly. Now, spiritually, we have an animal in us. That's the animal soul. The animal soul is, by us, it's considered a shor tam. It's an ox that is calm. Why? Because naturally a Jew only wants something that is permissible. The Jew doesn't naturally want to do something which is against the Torah. He wants a nice piece of kosher steak. He wants to watch, Ushpizin. Yeah, it's a religious movie. I was just saying. He wants to see kosher things, it's pleasure, but kosher pleasure. Then there's an ox that gores, right? Which means that there's the foreign things that can, a person sins only when there's a ruach shtus, when he has a temporary insanity, and but if a person does it enough times, he becomes desensitized. He becomes a sharmua. He becomes his MO. How can you save this ox and not have to get rid of it and know that it's no longer an ox that gores?
You muzzle it.
No. So the way you know that it went back to its calmness is if children can play with it,
okay,
and it won't do anything to them. In other words, that it and what does that mean for spiritually? That a person has worked on themselves so much that they can tolerate, right? Like the Rambam says that what is tshuva? Tshuva is when a person is in the same place, in the same room, in the same situation with the same woman, and he doesn't sin. That's real tshuva. It means that I am in the same position I was, but I've grown. I don't sin again. But there's also another way. What? Because the work, sometimes this work can take a lifetime. How can a person distance themselves? Right now, I want to take myself away from this. I want to be close to God. I don't want to be here anymore. But so there's another halacha that when it changes domains, when let's say it's sold, there's a possibility that it could be a new entity, and it's no longer. You have to see. Maybe it's not necessarily a ox that gores. What does that mean? That if a person takes themselves and immerses themselves, meaning they haven't worked out all their things yet, they haven't worked out all their problems, and they haven't, worked on their impulse control and holding themselves back from sinning, but they immerse themselves in a place of holiness. They put themselves in a place where they're totally surrounded with holy things and totally remove themselves from any outside influence, right? Like I said, have a goyla l'makom Torah. Go and exile yourself to a place of Torah. You put yourself, you can imagine someone who goes to yeshiva for a year. And they have sometimes these yeshivas that they're in the middle of nowhere where you can't, you have to drive a half an hour just to find a movie theater, whatever it is, yourself there. It doesn't matter what right now, your impulses don't matter. You put yourself in a place where you're saturated with holiness. And this is the spiritual lesson that you can take from this.
What does it mean? Thou shalt not muzzle a wild animal, a thrashing ox.
Threshing, no, because when it's working, it's and it's surrounded by food. It's cruel to not allow it to eat.
It's thrashing.
Thrashing?
Thrashing doesn't mean that it's eating.
Oh,
thrashing means it's going berserk.
Oh, I didn't know that that was a halacha. Is it a halacha?
It says you shall not muzzle a thrashing.
Is it thrashing or threshing?
Thrashing.
I don't even know if threshing is a word. I don't know. Okay, I will have to look that up.
What is thrashing?
It could be not a word, and I just made it up in my head. I thought maybe it's like
thrashing. Thrashing means like it's going berserk.
Right? Yeah, moving all over the place.
Yeah.
I don't know.
How can you possibly muzzle an animal like that?
I guess I'll have to look at the source of that. Okay, now I want to go back to this lady, Donna Gracia. She was born in Lisbon, Portugal, in a place where the family they were conversos, secret Jews. Some people call them new Christians. There were people who basically they were really secret Jews. They were called Marranos, very derogatory word. The Christians in that time called them Marranos, pigs. But
are they considered reform? What are they considered?
No, they were anusim,
which means they were just undercover Jews.
Anusim means you were against your will.
Oh, okay.
Because so she was born in, and I'm going to have to look at this for that. She was born in Lisbon, Portugal, to a very rich family. She married into the Mendes family. Her family was the Benvenista family, and their family was very involved in trying to help Jews who were secret Jews. They paid off, they bribed. Even popes were bribed so that they would, stave off the full extent of the Inquisition in Portugal. But eventually,
repeat that last line again.
What?
Popes being bribed.
Listen, it's no secret. This is it was the Inquisition. It was the most. It's the blackest, one of the blackest stains on their religion. They did. And anyways, so she was widowed. And when she was widowed, she became very rich. And she helped the Jewish people immensely. It's a whole long thing. I'm gonna put a link in Wikipedia and also Chabad.org. It says a few different things. Some things that it says on Chabad.org it doesn't say on Wikipedia, vice versa. But she went from Lisbon to a bunch of places. She was in Italy. She was in Antwerp. She was in Ferrara. And then she ended up all the way in Constantinople, where she made a yeshiva that we mentioned in the beginning of the show. That's where the Maharival, this rabbi, who said not to learn in the Bet Yosef's book in the Shulchan Aruch in the beginning, he was Rosh Yeshiva in this yeshiva that she made there. And she has an incredible story. When I read it, I cried. I read about her story, and the more I read about her, the more I had this like feeling of love to our people, and especially the Jewish women, the resilience that they have. You see what she did. I don't think any man would be able to do what she did. Like, and I mean this, like, incredible what she created a network when she already had left.
So she was basically the Mother Teresa before Mother Teresa was ever born.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. She created a network for Jewish people to leave Portugal, maybe also Spain. I don't know, because she was a huge. I think she had ships full of spices of trading, and Jewish people, and
Wasn't Columbus one of those undercover Jews as well?
So I think he wasn't, but I think he had in his company. I think he had. But anyway, so she had a crazy escape network where she would smuggle people on these ships out so they could go out to places where they could learn. They could leave and live as Jews.
Isaac Newton was an undercover Jew.
Really?
Isaac Newton?
I didn't know
Of
that.
course,
I don't even know enough about him.
Bro, a great mathematician like that.
I heard the name. I'm saying I don't know enough about him. You're hilarious. Okay, and she also, like, her daughter, her husband died early on, which is what left her with a huge fortune, which allowed her to have crazy influence, which she used to help Jews all over, especially people who were in the clutches of the Inquisition.
How does somebody at that time move great amount of wealth securely at that time?
So a lot of people,
especially as a widowed Jew.
So first of all, she had
on top of all that.
They were a very strong family, a very influential family in general. But in Chabad.org, it says she was imprisoned once, and then her nephew, who had incredible influence, Joseph Nasi, Don Joseph, a very, very, very powerful Jew. He made threats to the point of threats of war to get her out. I'm not saying everything in order, but and also I think one of the kings maybe King Charles wanted her wealth, and he realized that she wanted to leave. He tried to confiscate it, but she left with most of her wealth.
Charles was a king of
France, and she was in a neighboring country. I don't remember what it was, but there was
actually Charles, I believe, took Naples at that time.
But
1600s, yes.
Well, Naples was a whole different. We mentioned Naples with the doctor, but.
Oh, okay.
No, but yeah. Anyways, but this was in the time of the Ottoman Empire, where eventually she was able to make it to. Constantinople.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm talking about is almost 100 years before that.
Right. So Constantinople. She made it to Constantinople, and she also, because she had a daughter and she was so wealthy, a lot of people wanted to marry her off, but wanted to marry her daughter to their family, because then the male would get all the money.
Right.
And she had to refuse, and refusing people like that then meant putting your life in danger. And she did. She refused. So many people wanted to marry her. She said, no. And it was actually, sometimes it was dangerous for her life to do that. But she remained strong. She established a printing press. She's the first Jewish woman to establish a printing press of her own rather than inherit one.
Wow.
And she had 15 different books printed, including it's called the Ferrara Bible, which was translated into Ladino, which is like the Spanish Yiddish. And she there was in Ancona, the Pope burnt at the stake a bunch of Jews because he said that they were posing as Christians, and he burnt them. She was so influential that she actually orchestrated a boycott, an embargo of the port of Ancona because he did that. She was big time. And she, like we said, she for a lot of because so many people had no knowledge of Judaism because they had to keep their Judaism secret. What did they know? They knew that they had to light candles or, do Pesach, whatever it was. They knew nothing. And so she made shuls, she made, synagogues, and she made yeshivas so that they would be able to learn. And she even, this is how crazy it is. People consider her to be the first Zionist. Why? She was the first person who you could say maybe had some sovereignty, Jew who had sovereignty over a part of Israel. Why? She was so influential, she told the Sultan, she said, she asked him to give her a long-term lease of Tveria. At that time, the Ottoman Empire had conquered that part of Israel, but it was desolate. There was nothing there. And she said, why did he agree? Because she said, yeah, I know, but it's the mic isn't going. It's from here. And she said what she convinced them by saying that the taxes are gonna be significantly higher, and they were, but she did so much for the Jewish people, and she created the first Jewish community that was governed by a Jew. I mean, not fully, but it was her domain, as she wished, and she created a thriving Jewish community over there. And I cried when I finished reading about her, just the suffering she had in her life and the strength. Someone like that. I mean, it fills you with pride. I thought it was incredible.
Her husband get rich? Inheritance?
No, so her husband, the family, they were already traders of spices and silver a little bit, and her own family also was a very prominent family. And then her niece married Joseph Nasi, who was also a very, very influential Jew. There's actually a shul in Constantinople, and now it's Istanbul, that is considered, some people argue about who it was, but it's called La Señora, the lady. People said it was named after her because she was the one who established it. Some people say that it was a woman named Leah from a different era. But the point is that she was so influential, and
There's still people in Turkey now, like Jews in Turkey.
Yeah.
What the hell are they doing
there? They're officially, on paper they're okay, even though what just happened there when the whole October 7th thing happened. There's some. I forgot what it was exactly, but they weren't very good to Jews.
It's like a Jew living in Palestine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You
can't even call it Palestine. Gaza. Or how do they call it?
Gaza. That's what they say. Anyway, I just, guys, I really want to apologize for how the beginning went. The audio and the browser weren't going together. It took me 20 minutes just to figure that out. Thank you for everyone who was here. And I think I'm going to edit this because it's too much waiting and too much. Normally I just leave the live video. I think I'm going to cut it up and edit it.
If anybody wants to shame Yosef for it, leave us some likes. I don't know you're trying to shame him.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to look. Let's look at the comment.
Oh, we have comments?
Yeah, loy sachsem shor bedishay. You shouldn't muzzle an ox. It's not when it's thrashing. I think you got it wrong. It's when it's doing when you know what the tractor does.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's not thrashing. But let's see if thresh is a word. Let's just thresh. Let's see, thresh. No, not threshold.
Thrash.
No. Thresh, separate grain from a plant, typically with a flail or by the action of a revolving mechanism.
Okay, so it is. I was right. So you don't muzzle them when it's thrashing. Thank you.
It's threshing. It's working on the field.
Right. So.
Okay. Yeah.
So don't muzzle an animal
when it's working
thrashing.
On the field.
Right,
okay.
So
okay.
right.
Fine. Yeah. But it doesn't mean this.
Right. I thought it was like thrashing.
But it's funny because it says that actually it's a variant spelling of thrash.
Right.
So it also means that.
Thrash,
interesting.
Right. That's why I thought thrash, not thresh.
Yes. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope, we try to bring the best quality. the mics went out, the cameras went out. I have been super busy, and I'm sorry that it impacted this. I'm going to make sure and do everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen again.
So you're penalized with a somersault.
Oh, somersault. Okay.
He's like, oh, okay.
But guys, I just want to say
I'm not a very friendly guy.
I hope you enjoyed.
Yes. Thank you for joining us. I hope you found this to be entertaining and
informative.
That's right.
And I really, this story of this woman just left me so a million emotions. And by the way, the crazy thing is, I think that she's a well-known character. Like for a lot of Jews, I just think I is ignorant of it. I guess we both need to brush up on our Jewish history, but let's do the somersault and then we'll close this out. Oh gosh!
Dude, I went jumping yesterday.
What does that mean?
Like jumping? Trampoline. I took my kid to a trampoline place with my niece. Mm-hmm. They had a blast, and I saw the Pistons there.
Oh, okay.
I was like, "Oh shoot, what's up, man?"
Okay.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Let's see. I'm feeling old. Ooh, that was a good one.
You didn't break anything, right?
No.
You're not in pain? I don't want your wife calling me and telling me, dude, what'd you do to my husband? Why did you make him do this?
I think you somehow managed to mention my wife.
In everything, right?
Every single time. It's amazing.
Oh, poor girl. For no reason.
Anyway, Mendy, thank you for being here. Guys, like I always say, this is just the needle in a haystack. I will, at some point, put in I would say within the next 24 hours, I will put up the links for all of these, all the links I want to show you guys. I want you to check out. Learn the Parsha. There's so much. This is just the tip of the iceberg. And again, I want to apologize for all the mishaps. We'll get better at this. Yes, thank you for being patient.
Please subscribe. Please like and recommend to your friends.
Yes, like, subscribe, smash the like button, and
we will see you next week. Good Shabbos. Thank you for having us.
Please consider supporting the channel.
That's right.
We love you.
Patreon is somewhere down there.
Yes. All right, guys.